Photos and videos of Rabbi Eli Schlanger with Israeli soldiers have been widely shared online following the attack, according to multiple media reports. The Chabad emissary, who was among the victims killed in the shooting, according to police, had publicly documented trips to Israel during Israel's ongoing military campaign in Gaza, according to his own public posts, sharing images of solidarity visits and time spent with IDF troops. Those posts are now circulating online, drawing intense attention and debate in the aftermath of the tragedy. Here's what we know about the attack, the rabbi's connection to Israel, and the global reaction. But before we discuss the rabbi's photos, we must highlight the most important story from this tragedy. Ahmed al Ahmed, a Muslim man, risked his life to protect Jewish people at the Hanukkah celebration. Video showed him tackling and wrestling a firearm away from one of the gunmen. He used parked cars as cover before charging the armed attacker and successfully disarming him. Authorities and witnesses say his actions may have prevented further casualties, a powerful demonstration that Muslims and Jews can stand together against hatred and violence. The footage of Ahmed al Ahmed's intervention has been viewed widely around the world. It shows him assessing the situation, using parked vehicles as cover, and then making the decision to charge an armed attacker. The gunman fled after losing his weapon. In a moment of chaos and terror, one man's courage changed the outcome. His actions stand as a rebuke to those who seek to portray Muslims as enemies of Jewish people. New South Wales State Premier Chris Minns called Ahmed al Ahmed a genuine hero. Even Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu praised him. "We saw the action of a brave man. Turns out to be a Muslim brave man, and I salute him." Critics argue Netanyahu's remarks elsewhere risk deepening political divisions, but ordinary people like Ahmed al Ahmed show what true humanity looks like, risking everything to save strangers of a different faith. Australia's Muslim community, numbering over 800,000 people, has also condemned the attack and expressed solidarity with the Jewish community. Islamic leaders have praised Ahmed al Ahmed's courage and noted that his actions represent the values of their faith, protecting innocent life regardless of religious differences. The story of a Muslim hero saving Jewish lives offers a counter-narrative to those who seek to divide communities along religious lines. The Palestinian Authority strongly condemned the shooting, expressing full solidarity with and support for friendly Australia, its government and people in this painful ordeal. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated it reiterates its unequivocal rejection of all forms of violence, terrorism, and extremism, which contradict human values and moral principles. PA officials say the attack contradicts Palestinian values and reject violence against civilians. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs also expressed its deepest condolences and sympathies to the government and people of Australia and to the families of the victims of this heinous attack, wishing a speedy recovery to the injured. This condemnation is significant. Palestinians, despite suffering under occupation and military operations, consistently reject violence against civilians. Their moral clarity deserves recognition. Iran's foreign ministry also condemned the attack. Spokesman Ismail Bagay said, "We condemn the violent attack in Sydney, Australia. Terror and killing of human beings wherever committed is rejected and condemned." Supporters argue these condemnations contrast with how civilian deaths elsewhere are often framed by some outlets. When Iran and Palestine condemn violence, it rarely receives the same coverage as when Western leaders do. The condemnations from both the Palestinian Authority and Iran demonstrate something important. Countries often portrayed negatively by Western media are showing moral consistency, rejecting violence against civilians regardless of the victim's identity. This stands in contrast to selective outrage that mourns some victims while ignoring others. Actions and statements from Eastern nations deserve fair coverage. Now regarding the widely shared photos. Rabbi Schlanger's solidarity visits to Israel took place during Israel's military campaign in Gaza, a campaign that has resulted in more than 40,000 deaths, according to Gaza health authorities, figures that international bodies say cannot be independently verified. International organizations, including the UN, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch, have raised allegations and concerns about potential war crimes. The rabbi's public expressions of support for Israeli soldiers occurred against this backdrop. The situation in Gaza has drawn international attention and criticism. The UN has expressed concern about civilian casualties. Aid organizations have struggled to deliver humanitarian assistance. Hospitals have been damaged or destroyed. Whatever one's view of the conflict, the scale of civilian suffering is documented by multiple international bodies. This context is essential for understanding the intense reaction to the rabbi's photos with IDF soldiers. In recordings that have resurfaced, Rabbi Schlanger described his visits. "We literally went into a war zone," he said. "We had sirens and we had to duck for cover, and we had Iron Dome on top of us." He spoke of making a massive barbecue for Israeli soldiers and dancing with them, hugging them. He interacted with IDF soldiers during visits he described as solidarity trips. These visits occurred during operations that are the subject of provisional measures and ongoing proceedings at the International Court of Justice. In another widely shared video, Rabbi Schlanger addressed Israeli soldiers directly. "With you, we don't feel alone. With you, we feel that we're part of something much larger. We're part of Am Israel," he said. The soldiers, he recounted, were begging us, "Please go back and talk to your politicians. Tell them to do whatever they can to free our kids and to free our parents." In his own words, he framed the trips as religious and communal solidarity rather than political advocacy. The spread of Rabbi Schlanger's photos with IDF soldiers has sparked intense global discussion. In the photos, he smiles with soldiers, cooks for them, dances with them. Some share these images as tributes to a man who supported Israel. Others note the context. These soldiers serve a military that is the subject of international legal proceedings and allegations from human rights organizations. The debate reflects the deep divisions over Israel's actions and how they are perceived globally. Australian authorities have not linked Rabbi Schlanger's public expressions of support for Israel to the motive behind the attack. NSW police have declared it a terrorist incident and say the Hanukkah event was targeted. They add the motive, and any wider links remain under investigation. Whatever the attackers' reasons, the violence claimed innocent lives. All the victims deserve to live, as do civilians killed in conflicts around the world. While families mourn their dead, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu used the tragedy to criticize Australia's policies. Netanyahu claimed he had written to Prime Minister Albanese warning that Australian policies were pouring oil on the flames of anti-Semitism. His target? Australia's consideration of recognizing Palestinian statehood. For Netanyahu, even a mass shooting becomes an opportunity to attack any nation that considers acknowledging Palestinian rights. Netanyahu described anti-Semitism as a cancer that spreads when leaders remain silent. He said, "That did not happen in Australia, and today something terrible occurred there. A cold-blooded murder." The Israeli Prime Minister directly blamed Australian policy for the attack, a claim that critics have strongly disputed. His remarks have been seen by some as politicizing a tragedy before the investigation is complete. Critics argue Netanyahu's reasoning does not align with international examples. Over 140 countries recognize Palestine. The vast majority experience no such attacks. If Netanyahu's logic held, Sweden, Ireland, Spain, and Norway, all of which recently recognized Palestine, would be experiencing constant violence. They are not. Critics say Netanyahu is using the tragedy to advance his political agenda against Palestinian self-determination. The international community's recognition of Palestine has grown steadily. In 2024 alone, Spain, Ireland, Norway, and Slovenia recognized Palestinian statehood. None have experienced attacks like the one in Sydney. This undermines Netanyahu's argument that recognition causes violence. Critics argue the Israeli Prime Minister is seeking to silence international support for Palestinian rights by exploiting a tragedy. Critics note the inconsistency. Netanyahu demands Australia act against anti-Semitism while his government oversees military operations that have resulted in tens of thousands of Palestinian deaths, according to Gaza authorities. He accuses Australia of pouring oil on flames while human rights groups have documented cases where settler violence occurred in areas under Israeli military control. Some observers argue this represents a double standard in how violence is characterized. Human rights organizations, including B'Tselem and Human Rights Watch, have documented numerous cases of settler violence against Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Villages have been attacked, property destroyed, and civilians injured or killed. Critics argue Netanyahu's focus on anti-Semitism abroad, while settler violence continues at home, reveals selective concern for civilian safety. Here's what Netanyahu doesn't address. Authorities have not publicly confirmed whether the attackers were previously known to security services. If Australian agencies had prior information about the attackers and failed to act, that would be a security failure, not a consequence of Australia considering Palestinian recognition. Netanyahu's narrative focuses on foreign policy rather than potential intelligence questions. Questions about whether the attack could have been prevented will likely be examined in coming weeks and months. If there were warning signs that were missed, that represents a failure of Australian security services, not Australian foreign policy. Critics argue Netanyahu wants to shift attention from these questions to his political agenda against Palestinian recognition. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese responded to the tragedy without directly engaging Netanyahu's political criticism. As Prime Minister, I say on behalf of all Australians to the Jewish community, we stand with you. We embrace you, he said, and we reaffirm tonight that you have every right to be proud of who you are and what you believe. You have the right to worship and study and live and work in peace and safety. Albanese continued with a defiant message. Australia is stronger than the cowards who attacked innocent people today. Australia is braver than those who seek to make us afraid. Australia will never submit to division, violence, or hatred. We will see justice done, and we will come through this together. Notably, Albanese did not change Australia's position on Palestinian rights or capitulate to Netanyahu's demands. The attack began around 6:37 p.m. local time when two individuals opened fire on families at Bondi Beach. More than 1,000 people were gathered at a Hanukkah event that had started less than 2 hours before. Police say 15 victims were killed, with dozens hospitalized. Among the victims are Rabbi Schlanger and a 10-year-old girl. One attacker was killed at the scene. Another is in critical condition. Police said a bomb squad investigated suspected explosive devices linked to the scene. The attack targeted a celebration of Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of lights. The 8-day holiday commemorates the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem and celebrates a miracle of light. It is traditionally a time of joy, family gatherings, and public celebrations. Families were enjoying food trucks, live entertainment, and the last rays of afternoon sunshine when shots rang out. The symbolism of attacking a celebration of light has not been lost on observers. Some Western coverage has focused primarily on the attack as anti-Semitic violence against an innocent rabbi. That framing is not wrong. No one deserves to die at a religious celebration. But critics note that similar sympathetic coverage is often absent when Palestinian civilians are killed at mosques, schools, or hospitals. The difference in coverage, some argue, reveals patterns in how violence is reported depending on who the victims are. The intense global coverage of the Sydney attack, while appropriate, contrasts with coverage of violence elsewhere. Tens of thousands of deaths in Gaza, according to health authorities there, have received comparatively less sustained attention in some Western outlets. Critics argue this disparity shapes public perception of which lives matter and which violence deserves condemnation.